for this year, our leadership asked all of our committees to take a look at the issues that we really felt could really open this United States up and move us forward. And so we came up with 6 different major issues. And within each one of those issues, we were tasked with bringing some sort of a plan together about how we would implement those. And so those 6 different areas, let me start with the tax code. I'm on Ways and Means, so this is one of the task force that I sat on. Our tax code is far too large. It's far too complicated. Our former chairman, David Camp, said that the tax code is 10 times the size of the Bible with no good news. And this is true. It has not been reformed in 30 years. It is very expensive for families to figure out that tax code and how to file their taxes. And so what we want to do is we want to modernize our tax code. We want over 90% of the people to be able to fill out their tax returns on a single postcard, back and front. We want to reduce the size of what is in the code for everyone. I think you all will like this one. You know, the death tax, the estate tax, when your family works really hard to amass whatever it is that they're able to get to hand on to the next generation, and the federal government wants to come in and take 30, 40, 50% away, we wipe it out. We say, you work hard for it, you get it, you get to keep it. We take the standard deductions and we increase those so that you don't have to gather up all those little slips of paper that you have to save in order to show what you can deduct off of your taxes. Because we raise the standard deductions up enough that it takes more than the average of what you would normally deduct if you were doing it by individuals line by line. And we make it much, much easier. We bring the corporate tax rate down so that we're competitive with countries all over the world. Right now, we're at about 36% on the federal government side, and then you add to that the state's tax. Now, of course, we don't have an income tax here in the state of Tennessee. I know we have the Hall's income tax, but I mean just a general income tax for everybody else. But you take someplace like Illinois, where they have 6%, 7% income tax, they have to add that in. So if they already have a 36% corporate tax, you add another 7% to that, we're over 40% that is being paid by our corporations. We are the highest one in the OECD. The next level one, some of the countries like England is now down to, the United Kingdom is down to something like 18%. So imagine trying to compete when you're at 40 and the other countries are at 18%. We bring that down to a 20% and make ourselves competitive around the world. So that's the tax code. The other issue is poverty. And this is so bothersome that after 50 years of what we call the war on poverty, where President Johnson said, we're going to fight poverty and we're going to get rid of poverty. We now have more percentage of our population in a poverty situation now than we did back then. We measure our fight and success on poverty by how many people get on a program rather than how many people get off of a program. And yes, there are a lot of dollars that are spent in those programs. But more importantly for me and for our task force that worked on this, and I was part of this task force, is we lose human capital when people don't reach their full potential. When somebody doesn't know what God-given talents they have because they're stuck in poverty, that doesn't help our country. We're not having those good minds think about things that are creative, inventive. We're seeing that in other countries, but we're not seeing it here in the United States. So we have a plan of how we can get people, if you're willing, if you're an able-bodied person and you are collecting entitlements, you should be out working. And so we're going to have a program where we're going to put people back to work and we're going to make sure they have an education. There are 2 indicators that will help you get off poverty. One is education and the other is work. And if you don't have the education, you probably don't have a good job. So they come hand in hand, and our program will address that issue. We want to rebuild our economy. I hear from businesses all over my district, whether it's the banking industry or whether it's a manufacturing industry, the government is in our way. All of these regulations, we our job because it's so overregulated. Cutting those regulations down and letting businesses do their work and letting the economy burst wide open. We believe if that's done, and we know it has been done after Reagan came into office, after Carter, look at what happened to the economy. It just blew up because he said, get the regulators out of the way and let the people do what they know that they can do best. We replace Obamacare with something that is more patient-friendly, something that gives you the opportunity to say what you need rather than what the federal government says you need. And we allow more competition in the marketplace, which will bring the cost down. And we have a way also to take care of those people that are pre-existing conditions and have difficulty getting insurance. We want to protect our national security. I talked about some of those. And then restore our constitutional separation of powers. One of the most frustrating things for me when I went to Congress is here at the state level, when a bill was passed, it would be sent to the executive branch, and they would write rules and regulations. And then those rules and regulations, before they ever went into effect, came back to our body. We looked at those and said, this meets the intent of what we passed the bill. It is then, it gets a final vote, and it goes into law. Well, it doesn't work that way up in Congress. Up in Congress, what happens is we pass a bill, it gets signed into law, it goes to the administration, and they write one regulation, a rule after another, and we have no say. So it never comes back to us for a discussion. And we see an administration that's on steroids with writing all of these rules and regulations, and when they can't get something passed in the House of Representatives and the Senate, they just decide to do a final rule or regulation. To give you a good example of that, the war on coal. They really tried very hard to pass those bills in Congress to take care of the coal industry because they really want to shut down the coal industry. They were unable to do it. By the way, when they tried to do it, they had the House and the Senate and the White House. And even then, they could not pass those bills. So what has the president done? He has done it by regulations. And so what we want to do is take back some of that control and put it back in the House where our founding fathers really meant it to be. So those discussions between the House and the Senate can take place. And if it does not pass there, then the president doesn't have the authority to just usurp his power and take over. So those are some of the things that we want to do. If you want to know more about each one of these, you can go to better.gop. And you can get as much information or as little as you want. We have it set up so you can just have bullet points to see what we're talking about in each one of those areas, or you can actually go through and see like 40 different things that are more detailed to help implement a better way and to actually get